What's up, everybody? Welcome to Black and Tan. I'm the only one here today. It's all right. The show must go on. No, Elvis is out riding. Paul is still away vacationing. Pretty much what he does now. That's his life. Can't blame him. So I've been trying to get these guys on the show for a long, long time. Marc Frazer, Tofik, and I'm Donald from Black and Tan. So I've been trying to get Marc on Black and Tan now for probably 2 years, easily 2 years.
Okay.
And I just felt like Marc has a lot to say about the junior program in our area and the development of juniors in our area. And well respected guy because he's been doing this now for 30 years.
Yep.
30 years of racing in our area. And easily, how long have you been with Kelly?
Kelly? Probably 20 years.
20 years with Kelly. That's big.
Yeah.
That's big time. And how long have you been with their junior program, like developing their junior program?
I believe it's going on 6 years.
Okay.
So when Nima took over the elite program,
Okay.
there was a few juniors around, and he said, "This is going to be a little bit too much for me. I'm going to handle the elites, and how would you like to handle the juniors?"
Right.
And how hard could that be? What kind of commitment could that be? It couldn't be too much. So I was like,
Right.
okay, sure, I'll do that. And so that's what happened. I kind of get suckered into it, is what happened.
Yeah. But I mean, there's in my opinion, there's like a need for these type, not just my opinion, everybody's opinion. I mean, you help develop some really outstanding athletes like locally. At one time, my business partner's son, Andrew, Rob Strohmeyer, his son Andrew, went through the Kelly program at one time.
Right. When Andrew first came to us on the road, basically he couldn't ride more than an hour and a half.
Right.
We'd be out doing rides, and of course, Jeremy was with us, and Toby Klein, Jonah Kelly, and we would go do rides, and Andrew would get dropped, like starting at an hour and a half.
Right.
And I would have to yell at the other kids, like, "You're just going to leave your teammate back here?"
Right.
Like I tried to start the team philosophy from the very beginning. And Andrew helped with that because he was constantly getting dropped.
Right.
So I'm like, your teammate's getting dropped. You can't do that. So we would slow down and wait for Andrew to come up. So,
well, one of the things that I want to say, I mean, this is early on Andrew Strohmeyer. We're talking, just to put it in perspective, we're talking about a guy who's now world-class, won I don't even know how many national championship jerseys he's won, but he has a couple.
Two national jerseys and a Pan Am jersey.
Yeah. So we can talk this way about him right now, and it's not even a big deal.
Yeah, I'm not dissing on him at all.
No.
But it just kind of shows the progression from him training specifically for cyclocross,
right?
And for a 45-minute event. And the year after he rode with us on the road is when he won junior nationals in the Pan Am Games.
Right.
So all that additional, all those additional miles that he put in, his legs and his base got bigger, and it allowed him to train harder.
Right.
I mean, obviously he's phenomenally skilled. He's amazing to watch on the bike, but he just didn't have that base at that time.
Right.
So yeah, I feel like we helped a little bit as far as his early career was concerned.
How many juniors are in the program right now?
Right now, there's 9 kids.
Okay.
So we have kids from all over the country. 2 New England kids, 2 PA kids, a kid in Delaware. Tofik is from Arlington, Virginia, and a couple Baltimore area kids.
Okay.
So in order for us to compete at the national level, it would be very rare that we could just put together a team composed of just DMV kids.
Right.
Just you just.
Right. I mean, the talent comes from everywhere.
Yeah.
It's like putting together a championship winning college team. You're going to recruit from every place you can recruit.
Right. I mean, if we're going to compete at that national level with, hot tubes, used to be Lux, now it's EF a little bit, so in order to compete with those big teams, you have to broaden your recruiting stamp.
Oh, for sure. So a couple questions for you, Tofik. So Tofik under the tutelage of Marc and Nima, who's Nima has a role in it as well.
So Nima is the director of the complete program. He's the elite team director.
Okay.
So he works mainly with the U23 guys. And so he gets to go to Spain and Belgium and, all these cool races, Redlands, and I get to go to Carl Dolan.
Okay. Well, listen, everybody has a role. You know what I mean? We all can't be quarterbacks.
Exactly.
But so Tofik, when you're how is it riding underneath of Marc? I'm curious because again, I've known Marc for a long time. I've never been in a situation where I had to be coached by Marc. So how's it being coached by Marc? Now is your chance to let it all out.
This is really fun. You get to learn a lot of stuff. Like he expects stuff from you that he knows you can do.
Right.
He is just, like if you do it, he's happy, and he doesn't want you to do less than that, and he expects some expectations from you.
Yeah. So what about the team? How does it feel like being on a team like that, where you're racing all over the United States, mostly East Coast though, right?
Yeah.
But you're racing up and down the East Coast.
It's just really fun to have the opportunity to do that. Like especially coming when I started, I just did local races. Now it's really fun just traveling and experiencing new places and meeting new people and creating new competition.
Yeah, I could see that. So I've been watching you kind of develop, and I've been watching you. The cool thing about you is nowadays in races, everybody has video cameras, GoPros, right?
Yeah.
Everybody has GoPros. So I've been watching you race on YouTube.
Yeah.
And so Marc would come in and be like, man, Tofik had a bad race this week. And I'd go immediately to YouTube and I'd watch the entire race. I watched the one when you were in New York and some guy crashed right in front of you. You had nowhere to go and you right over the handlebars.
Yeah.
I watched pretty much most of your races that I was able to find on YouTube. I watched most of them from last year. And even from that perspective, I was able to see you grow in cycling. Like I've seen you, now you're in the right spot all the time, it seems like.
Yeah.
It seems like before you were fighting for position and you weren't always in the right spot. Now I feel like you're in the right spot all the time. Can you feel that progression now? Because I obviously you won the second day of was the Air Force Classic. What was it?
Armed Forces.
Armed Force Classic. I'm sorry. So you won the second day of Armed Force Classic in Virginia, and halfway through it, you and another guy went off the front. This one I didn't have to watch on YouTube because I was there watching it live. You and another guy went off the front, and did you know that when you went off with this guy and you got a good gap, did you know what the outcome was going to be already?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So,
but here I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know because you were confident or in yourself, or because you were confident that you had teammates back in the field that was going to allow the break to stay away?
Yeah, there were I was confident in myself and also especially my team, because when I started, not really, and also they weren't confident in me because we didn't really know how to race. But now they know how to block people, and if one person goes, they just let him go, so everyone doesn't go with him, and they know what to do. So I was really confident on my team, especially when when I looked back, the few times I looked back, and I saw the gap growing, and they were just sitting in the front and blocking it.
Yeah. So not chasing you down, slowing the pace down whenever they can, to make sure that no one else is going to launch off the front, and giving you some cushion, give you a little bit of leadway, because it was just between you and another guy at that point. So watching that all develop in a big race like that was like amazing to watch. And I saw the team work, and I saw Marc working, I saw Nima working to make sure that, like, every lap they were coming through, and people, they were, whether you were screaming out something or whether you were, did you have mics?
Juniors can't race with radios.
Yeah. So it was literally, like I said, just you screaming out.
Yeah, just giving some information to Tofik as far as what the gap was.
Can you hear Marc?
I actually found a video of him screaming at me at forces.
Yeah. Can you hear him?
Yeah.
Are you so used to that voice that when you come around and you hear, can you just like cancel out everybody else's voice and just hear Marc's?
Exactly. And also, like, he knows where to be at the right spot. Like, they know, like, where it's easier for them to see me, and I can see them too.
Right.
Yeah.
So Marc, how important is it to have a development program like Kelly has for like just bringing, because this isn't Europe, right? Kids don't start racing road bikes at 8 years old,
right?
And and become nurtured at that age. How important is it to have a program like Kelly Benefits in this area?
I think it's huge. And I've had so many older racers, come up to me and say, "Man."
Why'd you point at me like?
Well, I said old.
Okay.
So that's why I'm pointing at you.
Just making sure.
Old.
Just make sure.
And they'll say, "Man, I wish that I had something like that when I first started."
Yeah.
Not that they didn't eventually learn, but the learning process was years instead of
support.
Yeah, the support and the race tactics and learning certain things. Like, eventually you'll get it.
Yeah.
But these guys, like you're talking about what happened at Clarendon, like they knew they didn't need radios.
Right.
They knew when Tofik countered our first move, we had a guy off the front in the beginning. He ended up crashing. Right. He did get back in the race. But as soon as the field came back all together, then right away, without, like, I didn't have to say anything, Nima didn't have to say anything. They knew, because this is what we've instilled in them from the beginning, from our very first camp, is once we start throwing punches, we're throwing punches.
Right.
So as soon as that move came back, right away, they were gone.
Right.
And the guys, the rest of the team, they see that he's up the road, and from that point on, we're covering.
Right.
Yeah, we're not necessarily blocking like in a Cat 4 sense, but we're covering moves. Yeah, we can let one guy go off because he's not going to get those guys.
Right.
But everything became so kind of natural for the whole squad that we don't really have to. We do all our practice and talks before the race.
Right.
So they already know going into the race what they're supposed to be doing.
So we know how beneficial it is, but how hard is it to, like, is there fundraisers? Is there other things that people can do to help you guys develop young kids? I know in our area, we're lucky to have, correct me if I'm wrong, like put it in the chat or whatever, but I believe BYC is the largest youth cycling club in the nation.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. So to have a youth cycling club like BYC be able to feed into what you guys have going on, to have like a NICA on the mountain bike side to be able to feed into what you guys have going on.
It's huge. So, not just BYC, want to give a shout out to Rock Creek Velo in DC.
Okay.
Like, they're probably comparable in size. And we've had kids come through from both programs. Like Jonah Killey, who's been racing in Belgium for the past 2 years. He came up through Rock Creek.
Okay.
Bunch of Rock Creek kids. And then obviously right now we have 2 BYC kids on the team.
Right.
Lucas Brandt and Lincoln Summers. And we've had others come through, just
Right.
filtering through. But yeah, in order to have those kind of feeder programs, we could not be where we are without getting those kind of kids.
Right. We just didn't have it. I mean, the closest thing that we had was a BMX track when I was a kid. That's the closest thing that we had to feeding cyclists. But once you got done with BMX, you were kind of, shoot, it was even early enough to where mountain biking wasn't even that popular. And there wasn't really anything after BMX for a lot of people that are my age, and now it seems like there's so much more opportunity for young kids to come up in cycling. It's an expensive sport to initially get started. You don't go to your local neighborhood. There's not a team in every neighborhood like Pop Warner football or anything else like that. There's not where you sign up some paperwork and they hand you all your equipment. It doesn't work that way. Bikes are still pretty expensive, and especially race bikes. It's not a cheap sport to get into, which leads me to you being sponsored now and get a really good hookup from what company?
Richie,
are they just hooking you up as far as cross road? What's going on?
Well, my sponsor is on for cross season, and they've given me you need 2 bikes for cross, the pit bike and a main bike, and parts like handlebars and stems and other stuff like that.
Right. And we sponsor, we as in Patapsco Bicycles, we sponsor the Kelly's guys, and we offer them solid discounts in labor and in parts and stuff like that. We try to hook the guys up and keep them going, because like I said, it's definitely not a cheap sport to get into. Any little bit would help. It's donations or whatever. It doesn't really matter. Is there a way that someone could donate and help out the?
Yeah. So for Tofik specifically, he's not coming from a background where there's a lot of extra money in the household to, go ahead and buy, 2 $14,000 bikes.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy that we see it though.
So, I mean, that was such an eye opener last year when he started the USCX series.
Right.
All the kids, so the USCX series is the premier cyclocross series in the country for juniors.
Right.
And all those kids are showing up to the races with 2, $12,000 Treks or Specialized or whatever, bunch of wheel sets. And, Tofik came out last year on 2 borrowed bikes.
Right.
So both of the bikes that he used were borrowed, and both of them ended up being carbon repaired, just because Tofik.
He races hard. Let's just say he races hard. You race hard, right?
Yeah.
You race hard.
Yeah.
I get it. Will I lend you one of my bikes? Absolutely not. But yes, because you race hard, cross is one of those sports though, man. It's like, it's brutal on everything. I mean, you can literally go through a bike, a season easily. Like when I say go through a bike, I mean everything on that bike needed to be replaced. All the headset bearings, bottom bracket, wheels, everything needs to be replaced. Sometimes twice a season.
Yeah.
Depending upon if you get caught in a muddy race or something like that. So do you like cross better than you like road?
That's really hard. Like, cross is really fun, and you get to first of all, I get to spend time with Marc, He's my mechanic, driver, and everything.
Yeah. You are definitely his domestique.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, if I'm his mechanic, he's in trouble. So
You'll do he does a pretty good
Yeah,
job, right?
like
Keeps
yeah,
you going.
exactly. And road is like teamwork, and I would say cyclocross is more fun, but I love road. Yeah.
Cool. So trying to make sure that first of all that hey guys, if you're watching right now, throw us a thumbs up if the sound's right. And everything's going on the way it's supposed to. I'm not 100% sure that it is because I set up the studio today, and I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm not good at it. So if you're on right now, throw us something to let us know that you can hear us and everything's the way it's supposed to be. I'm pretty sure that I blocked out our Instagram. Yeah, I was supposed to be on Instagram, but I think I kind of messed it up. But anyway, so all right, so we got some thumbs up, so people can at least hear us. That's good. That's good. All right, cool.
So going back to the USCX series, he did a heck of a job. He reached out to Richie and did all that sponsorship by himself.
Nice.
Nice.
Well, I mean, you're making moves right now. You're young. You have a lot of the boxes are checked when it comes to you, right? And being approachable, just being a cool guy makes a big difference when people want to sponsor you. We have our sponsorship with Kelly, but if I didn't have a sponsorship with Kelly, I would want to sponsor you because you're one of the people that they're looking at right now locally. It's like, all right, well, I want to watch.
You were at Clarendon.
I was at Clarendon, and it literally was, in my opinion, was the best race of the day.
It was it was the Tofik show.
Yeah, it was 100%.
First of all, he lives 5 minutes away from the course.
Yeah.
All of MABRA, which for people that don't know is the Mid-Atlantic Bicycle Racing Association. Like at this point, like you said, everybody knows Tofik. They've been watching him grow since he was, started with us as, I guess he was 14.
Yeah.
Either 14 or 24. We're not exactly sure.
Yeah. Well, you know how that works. It's like Little League Baseball.
Yeah, right. For the Dominicans. Right. Exactly.
It's like Little League Baseball. We don't really know how old you are. I think at one point I told someone you were 36.
And they 100% believed.
Yeah. That could be anywhere from 14 to 36. But so you aren't afraid to put a wheel in. You're not afraid to dive into corners. Where did you learn to ride like that? Is that your own style?
No, like from Marc.
No, Marc does not ride like you. Marc does not ride like you. Even on that race, when you and this dude were off the front, you were still attacking the corners so hard. And I'm like, man, he really does. For me, I was like, man, I don't want him to lose it when he doesn't have to lose it like in a corner because you're so aggressive.
Yeah.
That mentality, where'd you learn how to handle a bike?
Well, I started as a mountain biker. That comes in handy, but I would say mostly from cross because racing cross is like trying to push the bike, especially in the corners, like as hard as possible, but trying to not fall. That's like the main thing is like push the limits, but not overdo it where you're going to crash out.
Yeah, no, I get that. Because I mean, you're two-wheel drifting around almost all the corners and cross. So it helps you with your bike handling skills there.
Yeah.
Obviously the dismounts, riding over off cross races are notorious for having like crazy off-camber stuff.
Yeah.
So your bike handling skills have to be higher.
Yeah.
And the ones that are higher, you'll see them excel and cross. Like I think that's where Andrew really jumped in and really started to dominate.
I mean, Andrews, since I dissed on him earlier.
Right.
But his bike handling is the best that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I mean, we were at Road Nats one year and he got a flat. So we were bringing him back to the Peloton. And there was a 90-degree right-hand turn kind of at the bottom of the hill. And, you know, we were letting them, you know, sit on the car for a little while. But as we approached the 90-degree turn, you know, he came by on the outside to make the right-hand turn. So he went all the way from the outside to all the way to the outside on the turn.
Right.
On the yellow line, meaning if you go over the yellow line, you're in a ditch.
Right.
One leg out. Like, you know, one leg out for balance, and he's on the line.
Oh yeah.
Like 2 more inches, and he would have been in the ditch.
I say that about all the young riders now. I mean, I call it the Legion effect, right? I feel like when we were younger, when we started racing, it wasn't nearly as aggressive in any way, shape, or form as it is now. I think in order to race nowadays especially in the younger, because you race masters, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
I do jump in with those guys and did some 1, 2, 3 races.
Yeah.
With them.
So jumping in with them, how different is it now racing with these young guys in the way that they handle bikes compared to how it was, say, 10 years ago?
Here's the difference. I don't think the races themselves are so much different. What happens is we get older.
Okay, yeah, but do you think it was as physical 10 years ago?
I think that the Peloton itself as a whole were better bike handlers.
Than now.
Okay. Because what happened was sometimes I blame Zwift.
Okay.
So you can be super, super strong, but not have the bike handling and the experience of, you know, 5 or 6 or 7 years of racing,
right?
In the pack. So I think it was safer then because everybody had gone through the same process, starting out as a Cat 5, you know, working their way up to the 1s, and then, you know, everybody was kind of, you start out not so strong, you get a little bit stronger each year every time you move up. Now you can be super strong and not have those bike handling abilities, and then all of a sudden you're in a group of, you know, 60 guys going super fast through the corners, and, you know, a good percentage of them just do not have the bike handling ability.
Yeah, I blame a lot on Zwift, to be honest with you. I blame a lot of crashes locally with big groups, riding groups. Everybody nowadays, I think the level of riding has gone up 3 levels, right? I mean, if we're talking 10 as being the highest, and before everybody was riding at like a 5, it's definitely way higher now than it was before.
And if you want to use the Legion effect, like when you're watching those races, these guys have been through each step of the way.
Right.
And they're comfortable. It looks super aggressive, and it is real physical, but they're used to it. They don't freak out when they get bumped.
And what I mean by the Legion effect is it's not saying anything negative to Legion or anything like that, but I see all the young kids now, again, there's cameras everywhere. So you get on YouTube, you're watching these races, and you see Legion, and you see Blazers and all these other, you know, best buddies. You see them all racing, and everybody assumes that that's the way we're supposed to race. Even at a lower level, they're racing so aggressive before they actually develop the bike handling skills to do it the right way.
Exactly.
You know, and to me, I'm on the edge of my seat watching, especially, I mean, even the higher levels, I feel like they're racing super aggressive now. You know, the lead out trains are crazy. The last 3 laps are absolutely insane. The speeds, the way that they come around the corners, the way that they protect the train is absolutely crazy. And I don't remember it, maybe because it wasn't as televised back then, because there, you had to be at the race or in the race to see what was going on before.
Yeah.
Now I can sit in my basement and watch YouTube and have a front row seat of everything that's been going on in every local race.
And it's scary to watch.
Oh,
It's way
it's
more
insane.
scary to watch than to actually be in the race.
Yeah.
I'm a mountain biker. I tell everybody, that's what I like to do most. I do a lot of road riding. People think that mountain biking is a dangerous sport. And I say it's nothing compared to crit racing, if you ask me. I mean, if I mess up on a mountain bike, that's because I messed up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Anybody can mess up in a crit race, and there you go. At 35 miles an hour.
I mean, the race you watched, the Harlem Cycling Classic,
Right.
where the guy
You had nowhere to go.
And what did the guy do in the race?
He turned around. He's like, keep your eye on the bars, and he's looking. I knew he was gonna crash, but it was like a random stuff in the right, and I couldn't go anywhere.
The video that I watched was actually the guy who caused the crash. He was narrating the video, and he said the same thing. He said, I made a mistake. And
he was actually mad at me after the race.
was he?
Yeah.
Well, that's the way it works. I mean, sometimes until you I'm sure after he watched the footage, he realized that it had nothing to do with you. It's just a different type of racing now, man. I'm like, my hat's off to all these young guys that are willing to put it all out there to race like that. There's no local road races, right? I mean, what's the next big road race?
For me, it would be Green Mountain in 2 weeks, actually.
Green Mountain. So I mean, we have Redlands. There's road races, but locally, there's not a road race where you can almost catch a crit almost every weekend.
Yeah, I mean, since everyone comes especially at the start of the season, everyone is riding Zwift and stuff, and there's a lot of more long road races because everyone is used to just long distance, but there's only 3-4, and that's it. But before, Marc, we used to go last weekend, we went to Sugarloaf, it did a century. Used to be oh, there was a road race here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we used to have road races everywhere.
Right.
I mean,
I think the big one, or probably the biggest local race, is Poolesville, as far as
which
road
is still
races.
happening.
Yeah.
Poolesville's been happening for a long time.
Yeah.
How many? Probably. I mean, I can't remember a time that since I've been into cycling that Poolesville wasn't a thing.
Well, just as an example, how long it's been going on, I lost to Russ Langley, who was a very, very high level racer. He ended up at Snow Valley, and he was doing NRC stuff.
Right.
But me and Russ raced against each other in the Cat 4 championship race at Poolesville.
Right. So you lost to a very high level rider. Did I beat you in a race?
I think you did beat me in a race.
You beat Marc in a race.
But it doesn't really count because, number one, it was a training race.
Okay.
And I was on my training bike.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay.
But did we look up the cyclocross race? Did you beat me or did I beat you? I can't remember.
You mean from the end or from the last?
Well,
or from
everyone else beat us. The race wasn't between anyone else. Our very first cyclocross race I ever entered, me and Marc entered it together.
Okay.
And it was in Philly. It was a race called Monkey Hill.
Monkey Hill. Yep.
And neither one of us, did you have a cyclocross bike? I definitely had a mountain bike. I definitely was on a mountain bike. And so much fun. I tell you what, we were talking earlier in the shop earlier this week, and the cool thing about cross is you can go and have a good time.
Yeah.
I'm not going to waste my money and not try to win, but trying to win and still have a good time, where mountain biking is similar to that. Road riding is definitely not that, right? Everybody has their game faces on when it comes to road riding. No one's joking around. There's no beer handouts.
So the bad thing about the internet is that our story, it was always better when I beat you.
No, it is. It was
But
always better.
according to the internet,
Right.
you actually beat me in Monkey Hill.
Yeah, I see it. For years, I was saying that Marc beat me. And then I looked it up. It's still like, I can't believe that you could still find our results on the internet. And I looked it up, and I actually finished in front of Marc. I think we both finished as like second to last and last. but we had Tofik. We had the most fun out of anybody there. I can tell you that. That's right awesome. Now.
Yeah.
Like, that's the cool thing about cross. I think, when there's a Charm City is coming up.
Big one.
Right. That's going to be a big DCCX is coming up. That's going to be another big one.
Yep.
Right. You can go there and the atmosphere is more relaxed, party. Let's have a good time. Yep. Trust me, there's going to be serious racing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
You got to wait a little bit later, but it's worth it.
It's going to be a good time at all these events. Mountain biking. What about mountain biking? How are you doing any races?
Not after I broke Marc's bike, but yeah, he lent me his bike, and it was
but you would do mountain bike. What about gravel?
I enjoyed gravel because there was a race called Monster Cross. It was a 50-mile.
Yeah, I've done it.
That's an awesome race.
I've done it. It was brutal. I did it in poor weather. It was a very muddy course that year, and it was a tough race. It was a very tough race. There's a picture of me with my head down in a child's swing after the race, covered in mud. It was brutal. But so does Kelly support any of those racing, any of those other styles of racing, or is it just mainly road?
It's mainly road. We usually have a Zoom call every Monday, try to do it every Monday. And since we have so many kids that are going to be transitioning and racing cross, we're going to try to have a little bit more support from the Kelly program, as opposed to just me, with 110 and just like cheering everybody on. So since we have so many guys racing, we're going to try to be out there a little more. But since we are a road race program, funding is really just for the road races.
Okay, got you.
So
which makes sense. I mean, that totally makes sense. I mean, that's your bread and butter. That's your go-to. What other sponsors do you guys have? I mean, Kelly Benefits is obviously your biggest sponsor. What other sponsors do you guys have? The Taps with Bikes, we sponsor you guys, but
you guys do a great job with us. Of course, Shimano, provides us with all components and helmets, that kind of thing. Patimo is our clothing sponsor. But I would say 99% of the money does come through John Kelly and the Kelly family.
Right.
And, if we're talking about money, it sounds like a lot, and it is. I mean, we're very grateful for everything they do for us. But when you figure in, the 10 U23 elite guys spending 2 months in Europe and then going, traveling all across the country, those guys need to be put up in Airbnbs. That race registrations are outrageous. So John does a great job. Like I said, we're very, very grateful and appreciative of that. But that big chunk of money, that goes very fast. It goes very fast.
I can imagine.
And when we get to September and these guys want to race cyclocross, it's not really there's no more money for that.
Right. Again, I'm not going to pretend like we have this big audience, but is there a way that people could help with the program?
Yeah, well, yes. So we've already talked about equipment. Tofik's done a great job. I don't know where he's gotten his components from. Like, he literally hustled, bought stuff, turned it around, made a little bit of money here and there. The East African cycling community in the DMV have been tremendous. in supporting Tofik both monetarily and support-wise.
Right.
Just being there to ground him, not to get a big head, make sure that he stays on top of his schoolwork and that kind of stuff.
Right.
But yeah, I've reached out besides the equipment, traveling to the USCX races. You're talking about Roanoke, you're talking about Rochester, you're talking about Wisconsin. Charm City is a little bit easier, but every race weekend basically is $8,000 to $1,000.
Okay.
And through the East African guys, they donated a little bit of money, a good amount of money. I reached out to guys that I played college football with.
Right.
Yes, I played college football.
Yeah, don't let his stature fool you. When I first met Mark, he was a bodybuilder. He has the nickname of Muscle Mark to this day because he was built like a fire hydrant when I first met him. He was big dude.
Yeah. But those guys, my ex-football teammates, they came through this past weekend and took care of the whole Rochester weekend.
Okay.
So they donated enough for travel, hotel, and race registration. That's awesome. Charm City is taken care of. So at this point, we are still trying to, fully fund Roanoke,
Okay.
which is the first race. Unfortunately, at this point, Tofik doesn't have a Cash App account or a PayPal account. If people feel comfortable, they can send money to my PayPal account.
Shit, I'm sure they could.
If they're not.
Okay, no, seriously. Like I said, Mark, I've known Mark for 30 years. Trust me. He is one of the most generous people I know. And with his time and what he puts into the Kelly guys is second to none. I'm telling you right now, that's like, it's very unselfish on your behalf on how much, because your time could be spent. I mean, you still race, you still ride.
Yeah.
Your time could be spent doing your stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
But I tell people all the time, like, so everybody, all the kids always, thank me after a ride or after a race or whatever. Thanks, Coach Mark or Coach Haroldini or whatever they call me. And I always tell everybody that I'm 100% sure that I get more out of this than they do.
No, I get it. I mean, I live vicariously through a lot of, like I said, right now, YouTube allows me to be involved in these races without having to be afraid, right?
Right.
I can be with I have a good friend Ed Sauls that I've been watching him racing, and it's funny because we'll talk about races afterwards. He's racing at a little lower level, but still, putting in the work. And we'll talk about races, and I'm like, dude, I've already watched your race from 4 different angles, because that's how many cameras are out right now.
Yeah.
If you want to watch, you want to go and pull up a race, and I mean, you literally, there's at least 5 GoPros in that big race, and I promise you, within 2 or 3 days, they're all going to be downloaded to YouTube.
Yeah.
And you can watch that race from multiple different angles. So, it's crazy to watch.
So once again, if you're comfortable sending me a PayPal, that's fine. I guarantee that money is going directly to our travel expenses or hotels or whatever. If you need a receipt from a nonprofit,
Right.
NEMA runs a nonprofit called the Giving Wheel Foundation.
Okay.
So we can provide receipts if you need, that extra layer of protection.
The Giving Wheel
The
Foundation.
Giving Wheel Foundation.
Okay.
And I understand. I deal with my job. I deal with handling a lot of cash. Can I say that?
Yeah, you can say that.
Okay.
It's fine.
So I always, anytime, even when Tofik gives me money to put into our fund, what do?
He makes me email how much money I sent him and like what date it is and stuff like that.
Makes sense.
Yeah, you
Makes
always
sense.
want to, be accountable for the money because number one, you don't want a friendship to be put in jeopardy because oh, I sent you, I gave you $20 and where it is or whatever.
Yeah, where's the money?
Yeah, where's the money?
Yeah.
So same thing with the East African guys. When they donate money, I send them bank statements. All that money goes on a card that he handles.
Right. Is there a ranking right now that you guys are like as far as like a junior team? Where are you guys ranked in the nation?
As a junior team?
Yeah, do you know?
I don't know that there's official rankings. I would say in the past, Lux was the top program. Hot Tubes has been around forever in the New England area, and they've produced like Magnus Sheffield, great Artem Schmidt, who just signed with Ineos. He rode with us for a year. Unfortunately, that was the COVID year. So by the time we were finished Tour of Southern Highlands, which is what we call Tosh, once that was done, racing that year was pretty much over. So Artem, unfortunately, didn't get to race with us a lot. He was at a bunch of our camps. So yeah, I would say you got Hot Tubes. EF is funded at the wazoo right now, just with relationships between George Hincapie, whose son races for EF, and their relationship to EF.
That's a pretty powerful name to get sponsors to come on board.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So that's how it. Well, fortunately or unfortunately, the people with the money. Lux was funded through like some kind of Wall Street thing,
right?
And whatever money went over a certain level went to the Lux program. And when there was the collapse, when all the funds started losing money, there was no money for Lux anymore. Once again, we're super blessed and grateful because this is all through John Kelly,
right?
All our things. So I would say we're consistently, easily top 5 always in the country in the junior program since we kind of took over 6 years ago.
Okay.
For quads, they have like independent rankings, especially for UCI races like the elite men and the junior. They have like ranking based on how you do in the 4 races there is for the UCI US series.
Yeah. And you're racing at a national level, and you what under 20? What category are you racing?
17, 18.
So it's a U19?
It would be U19,
U19,
UCI, and where'd you finish in the series?
Last year I got 4th place actually.
Okay. On equipment that wasn't the best.
Not the
let's
best.
Just say it wasn't the best.
And this is, you would say that it's almost an international series because it's the best kids in North America.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's Canadian kids as well as the cream of the crop of U.S.
And you finished 4th.
Yeah.
Good. And that's not even your focal. That's not even your focus. So the cross isn't your focus.
Like, I still don't know. I'm still a young kid. I'm figuring out what I'm good at, what I enjoy.
No, I get it.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not, you don't get the backing that you get like you do when you're racing road.
Yeah. And
obviously, because like you said, the money's going towards a road program.
Yeah.
Versus the cross program. And when he races cross, it's pretty much you individually with help from Marc.
Yeah.
Trying to make it happen.
Yeah, he's been really, really helpful, and I appreciate that. Especially last year, how he paid for basically for everything, hotel, just taking me driving me 10 hours to races, and he paid for my whole series and hotels and registration, and that was a lot to ask.
He's trying to gain his way into heaven, is what it is. I know what it is.
Exactly,
I know exactly what's going on here. I know exactly what's going on here. But so would you consider doing any of those crazy 200-mile gravel races?
I mean, if I have the equipment and
Would you want to do something like that?
Yes,
Really?
yes,
Look,
that-
he's all excited about it. I look at those races and I'm like, why the hell would anybody want to do those?
I
Like
don't-
it seems like it's torture.
Yeah.
But you get excited over, like, just me bringing it up,
yeah.
you got excited over.
Yeah.
You really would want to do something like that?
yes, but that's not like a thing you just wake up and you're like, oh,
No.
next weekend there's this.
No, I get it. It's something that you would have to train for
Exactly.
and work up to.
Yeah.
But that's something that you could see yourself doing.
Like the more you suffer, it's like bad, but then at the end you're like, I just did that. That just you
No,
feel
when
satisfied.
it's all said and done,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people that say, man, I just accomplished that. And there's a lot of people that say, I would never do that again.
Exactly.
Right? I can tell you right now that it would never happen with me in the first place. Because I don't like riding I love bikes, right? Or I wouldn't have the podcast. I wouldn't be in the situation that I'm in right now. I absolutely love bikes up to about 3 hours. And then I'm like, I'm not having fun anymore. I want to get off, right? I'm 0 to 3 hours, man. I can have as much fun as anybody.
Like last weekend, it was almost like 7 hours by the time we went home.
Yeah, I don't want to do a 7-hour ride. I just don't. I'm sorry. There's not much in this world that I would want to do for 7 hours. And I can think of some pretty cool stuff. But
It's like when you have people like Marc and you have a community, if you do it by yourself, it's like 100% terrible. But
and it also has to do with my time frame, right? I just don't have enough time to do many rides over 3 hours. So your body gets your biological clock at 3 hours for me tells me to get off the bike.
Yeah.
Right. And it literally everything starts to hurt. I get tired. And I'm talking, there's a wall at 3 hours where boom, I'm not having a good time anymore. But if I had time to train for longer rides, I'm sure I can extend that 3 hours to where I'm having fun at 4 or 5 or whatever else. But the amount of time that you have to put in to ride a bike and feel comfortable with over that, if you're racing or training at 3 hours, if that's your window, you're going to have to train at 4 to 5 hours.
Yep.
To make sure that you're comfortable in that position.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't have that time. So for me, it wouldn't work. And I don't know, again, even still, when you're talking those ultra long distance, like those new gravel rides, what are they called now? Wow, what's the Belgian waffles,
yeah.
all that type of
The
stuff.
Grand Prix.
Yeah, the Grand Prix series.
Yeah.
Man, they're racing for 8 hours,
Exactly.
9 hours.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Like this weekend, so we started off with one of the DC area rides that leaves at ride starts at 7:45. So we started with that ride, and then him and another Kelly guy, we broke off when we got out to a certain point, and then headed out to Sugarloaf. For me, I'm just sitting behind these guys, basically just motor pacing, waiting for my wheels to fall off. At some point, for whatever reason, I was okay this weekend.
Yeah.
But it was, when you ride with people that know how to ride, like every ride shouldn't be a race.
Yeah.
And that's something that I instill in these kids all the time. Every time you get on a bike, it's not a bike race.
Right.
So if you're training, let's say if you have 4 hours of zone 2, that doesn't mean you race. You're staying in your zone 2. And it's a long time, but
when you're young and competitive, how hard is it to stay in zone 2? Do you find it hard to do a chill ride?
Especially when you're in, like when I started racing, I used to just be like, to get stronger, you got to be in the front working. And I used to do that until they explained to me, it's like a triangle, and in the winter you just build your base long hours, and you slowly go back to like doing hard stuff. And
that's right.
Like your training over the week should just be 80% zone 2, and then that 20% like hard effort, your intervals,
but here's the problem. A lot of people don't understand that 20% zone 2 needs to be, it needs to be regimented. It can't just be you going hard for 20%. It needs to be a routine. You need to have structure
Exactly.
in order for it to work. So you can ride 80%, 80-20. That's what they call it, 80-20. You can do that all you want. But if that 20 is not structured, then you're not going to get the gains that you would think you would get.
Yeah.
So it's not as easy as just doing that. And as a young guy that's competitive, it's hard. I'm sure it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to do it sometimes. Just to be in a zone 2. My zone 2 is not your zone 2, by the way. My zone 2 is much slower than your zone 2. So, it's a little easier for me, but I have to sometimes ride by myself in order to get that kind of workout, because I can easily be pulled out of my zone, because again, I'm 51 years old and I still ride with 22-year-old, 23-year-old guys. Again, that their zone 1, their zone 2 is not my zone 2.
Yeah.
Every time you go to a group ride, if there's more than one person, if there's 2 bike riders at a ride,
Yeah,
that's a race.
Yeah. That's the way a lot of people look at it.
Yeah.
All right. So we're coming up on an hour. So we always end in black and tan fashion. We always end with questions on. So I'll hit you with it first, Tofik.
Okay. Let me get
Where did you learn? Who taught you how to ride a bike?
Well, back home, it's like.
Where's back home?
East Africa, Ethiopia.
Okay.
Marc just got me this. Yeah,
Right.
super cool hat.
Can you tell us what the colors stand for? No, never.
No, we've already talked.
We've already talked about it. So back home in Ethiopia, who taught you how to ride?
It was like, if you have a bike, you're like the coolest kid. Most people can't really afford it. And we can, but my mom didn't really think it was necessary for me to have it. And seeing other people wanting to do it and asking your friends if you can borrow and asking your friends to teach you and stuff like that.
So no memory of like the first time you first got it, huh?
No, when I came to the US, my mom, she bought me like a Walmart bike, and I was like an awesome time. I got to ride it and that was fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
No uncle pushing you down a hill.
No.
Yeah. We get that a lot. That's why I say it's kind of funny. It's like it always ends with someone being pushed down a hill. Oh, my dad, we had a grassy hill in the backyard, because this is how it happened with me. We had a grassy hill in the backyard. My dad pushed me and my sisters down a hill, and we all figured out how to ride. We crashed a handful of times. We got up. It was just grass, so we weren't going very fast. Cool. Marc, same question.
When did I start riding?
Can you remember?
So
who taught you how to ride?
I could, dude, that we used to ride bikes, right?
I get
in the alley,
I get it.
You would ride the bike up and down the alley. The first legitimate bike that I ever bought, was a Falcon, which is a British brand.
Mm-hmm.
And like a lot of people know, I grew up in Baltimore. And if you didn't keep a sharp eye on your bikes,
they were gone.
They were gone. They were going to ride away. So
even if sometimes they would ride away while you had a sharp eye on your bike, and there was nothing you could do about it.
100%, 100%. So the Falcon was actually stolen. I was running laps at Northwestern High School, and when I got to the furthest part of the 400 meter track, I looked over where my bike was, and somebody's getting on the bike and riding away. Like I was all the way down there, and there was no way I was getting all the way up there. So that was my first good bike.
Okay.
But I remember riding the Pretty Boy Dam as probably like a 14-year-old, and from the city with, who knows, maybe a can of soda or something.
Yeah.
No
nutrition.
No nutrition.
No nutrition.
Yeah, just get on a bike with a couple guys. Where are we going? Pretty Boy Dam. What the heck is a Pretty Boy Dam? Yeah. And 8 hours later, we're coming back. So
I used to ride without water, without nutrition, pretty much all the way up until I was like 35, 40. Right. And I used to go out for all day adventures, like all day. And I would just I'd stop and get something to drink at a convenience store. And then, that's the way, that was my nutrition. I'd eat back then it was the Power Bar. and it was
Oh, the power bars are so good.
the original power bars, right? We had this bar that was like a block of wood, right? And they called it a power bar. It honestly felt like hard, like taffy.
Yeah, in order to bite it, you had to put it in your mouth and move it up and
Yeah,
down.
yeah. And it would bite up, you would break it off. And they had these commercials, and it would be like, hey, I'm gonna ride to New York. New York's 4 hours away. Oh, don't worry, I got a power bar. Right? Yeah, so
I don't think that would work today.
no, it doesn't work
No.
today. Nothing that we did back then as far as nutrition wise would work today. People would look at us like we were
But
crazy.
a lot of people don't know, but the first cycling team I was on was Pete Cycle.
Pete Cycles, me and Marc raced on a team called Pete Cycles 1 Plus.
One plus, yeah.
So 1 Plus was a nutritional supplement. It was a liquid that was meant to hold. It was meant to hold your like water in your cells or something like that. I can't remember how it was explained to us, but it was nasty.
It was nasty.
It was nasty.
So do you remember how I ended up at Pete Cycle?
I do not.
So I used to live near Lake Montebello, and Lake Montebello, for people that don't know, is kind of like a Haynes Point type thing, just a flat course around a reservoir. And Doug,
Yeah.
what's Doug's last name? Okay, well, we know who Doug is.
Yeah. So Doug Vereen.
Doug Vereen.
Doug Vereen.
So Doug is up there, and you know, I'm riding around, and he said, "Why don't you join, you know, our little training session here?" I'm like, "Sure, cool." So he said, "When we get to this street lamp right here, we're going to sprint from this street lamp down to the next street lamp, all around the reservoir." I'm like, "Okay." I mean, I don't know anything. I'm just so, you know, we're riding. We get to the street lamp. Everybody starts their sprint, and I win the sprint to the next street lamp.
Right.
And Doug's like, "Yeah, that was pretty good. Let's do that again." Like he didn't believe his own eyes, right? And we did it again, and I won. And so that's when he invited me to come up to Pete's we used to do the indoor training.
Yeah, we used to do indoor training. Doug Vereen was our trainer for a while. Yeah, we would do every winter. We would do indoor training. He would have us do wall sits and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
That was back when I met Marc, Muscle Marc. But we had an opportunity where Bobby Phillips would do morning training rides with us. Bobby Phillips is one of the most winningest racers in the country, in the history of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And we were fortunate enough to have him go out and train us in the mornings. And we would leave. It'd be a small group of us, me, you, JT Clark, John Hughes.
Oh God.
Wayne Farrell, Jamaican Wayne. We can go back. And this is like, I'm telling you,
That would be a different podcast. We can go on forever.
That's 30 years ago.
Yeah.
That's legit 30 years ago.
How much did the bikes weigh?
Oh, a lot. But they didn't weigh a lot to us back then. I think I had a GT Attack.
Okay. Yeah.
That was my first real road bike. It was a GT Attack with Easton carbon forks. And we would build our bikes up, and we'd have all these aftermarket parts versus like a bike company now. You wouldn't put a different fork on that bike. Back then we would have different forks to be a frame, and we'd have different forks on it and all kinds of stuff. And I didn't know geometry well. I'd throw any fork on the front of it and just call it a day. But it's a completely different thing now, where I would have Easton handlebars, EA90 bars, an Easton EA70 fork,
Mavic
Heliums. If you could afford it, if you were the rich guys, you would have Heliums. Right. I made my own wheels even back then. But yeah, you know, bikes. I'd say a light bike back then was for the everyday guy.
Yeah.
Would be like 18, 19 pounds. Would be a really light bike.
Maybe my Specialized M4 Metal Matrix. That was a light bike.
Yep. They just didn't have, the bikes weren't what they are now. Obviously, everything progresses. The bikes that you guys ride right now, a low end, say if you got a tarmac comp, a tarmac comp is way better than the highest end bike that we ever had. There was nothing like that back then, right? They didn't even have full carbon bikes when I first started. It was a cool bike was steel, a fancy bike was aluminum, and an expensive bike was titanium.
Yeah,
those were the bikes that you got, right? You had those three choices. I don't know anyone that when I first started riding in like, you know, early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, no one had a carbon fiber bike. I remember when Cannondale first came out, and Cannondale had a full aluminum bike, and it was amazing the way that they had, like, they were the first company that came out with a full aluminum bike, and it was super light. That was one of the lighter bikes. But yeah, different age, man. You guys have it made. You have no idea.
Yeah.
So cool. Hey, I want to thank Marc and Tofik for coming out. Hopefully we all learned a little bit here about the Kelly program and what they have going on. Definitely, if you have the ability to help support Tofik and his ventures outside of road, get in contact with Marc Frazer. There's all kinds of ways that if you want to call the shop or whatever else, we can get you in contact with Marc. This is a public feed. I don't want to necessarily give out your phone number here, but
I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. You can find me. Tofik is on.
Yeah, what is it, Toto?
I mean,
is that your? You got to do something about your Instagram, bro. Anyway,
that's a good name.
It'll work. Okay. What do I know? He can speak an entire language. The young kids can speak the entire language that I don't understand right now.
Right.
They can say a whole paragraph and completely, I wouldn't know what they were talking about. So if it's cool, okay. But yeah, you can get in contact with Tofik through his Instagram, Marc through his Instagram and Facebook as well. If you have problems doing so, feel free to give the shop a call. We can help direct you. And
just basically what we want to do with Tofik is to give him a level playing field.
Yeah.
We talk about inclusivity and diversity and everything, which is great, but everything, we at least want to make things as even as possible, as a level playing field as possible. So yeah, if you have the means, you'd like to help him out, any little thing, any little bit of money would help, and it would all 100% go towards his cyclocross season.
That's cool. That's cool. I think, man, I think that's it. So, hey, guys, thank you for joining me. Thank you for putting up if the audio or the visual wasn't quite there. Thank you for putting up with me. Next, we'll probably have another podcast in the next 2 weeks. Try again, jump back onto the every other Wednesday setup. If you have any questions, guys, feel free to ask. And support your local youth cycling program. It goes a long way. This is an expensive sport, and some of these kids can't afford to buy the equipment that the next person is riding. And again, we want to keep it on a fair playing field. So one way we can do it is by you guys supporting your local youth cycling program. All right. Appreciate you guys hanging out with me. We had a few people out the entire time, and I appreciate you guys being there. And we'll talk to you in a couple weeks. Have a good one.